Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Smoking Aces. So, for this film, I'm kind of surprised why, after this film wasn't done, how we didn't have millions and bajillions of movies just like this. Like, we do have, like, the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, like, Killing Gunther, but, like, I don't think we have, like, these, like, mass hitman assassin movies like I would assume that we would have. And a lot of people would go on and be like, what about this movie? What about that movie? I think there is the one like Jason Statham film that I think is called like Killer Elite or something like that, but I don't remember exactly what that is, even though I've technically seen it. So I don't want to like say that that film is anywhere close to this film because I don't remember it all that well. Um, but there's a reference in there for the Robert De Niro, Jason Statham film. Anyways, so currently Smoking Aces is on Stars right now. If you're kind of looking for a really good movie app, I think Stars is one of those. Stars usually has really good content. I think right now Stars has like Venom and all of the Spider-Man movies, with the exclusion of possibly No Way Home. Um, so if you're looking for a place to go on and watch Spider-Man right now and Venom and all those kinds of movies, there's that right there. It has really good content. I think Commando, the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, just dropped on there, so that's good. Um, so yeah, Apple TV is a really good app. But anyways, pushing on. Smoking Aces. The free way to go out of your way to see Smoking Aces. Well, uh, you can go onto a Google search and search the words letter C movies, so AC and then movies, and then go on and say the word app afterwards. Be able to try to search for this one, find an app that is to fit that fancy of thing, and then you'll be able to go out of your way to see whatever you want. I would also recommend an app called Fox HD Movies. I couldn't conveniently see Smoking Aces on there, but with this app, you can kind of see any number of things, probably besides Smoking Aces. But there's a lot on there. So if you Google search the word Fox HD Movies, there'll be a logo that'll say Fox HD Movies and a title that'll say Play 1080p HD. But if you search the word Fox HD Movies, Bob's your uncle, you'll probably be able to find this app there. In fact, uh, going through a Google Play Store, I don't know if this movie's actually available in this app, but if you search the word TV Crush, there is going to be an app that shows up with an HD Movies logo with a crown on it. Go ahead and download that app and be able to watch a certain selection of things, but more than likely it might be Smoking Aces. I'm not quite sure because I didn't look through that app. But that has a pretty decent selection of movies that eventually you could see whenever you want to. So, now that I said all that stuff out of the way, let's go out of the way to talk about Smoking Aces. So, Kill Elite, Killing Gunther, similar kind of films, and why isn't there kind of more of these movies? Probably because it's really confusing, probably because it's really hard to do, and you can kind of tell that it is technically hard to do with Smoking Aces. I enjoy this movie. I enjoyed it. But it's a lot of build of a movie. A lot of a build. A lot of a build to also just like, hey, like, we have to talk about this in private investigator who is to consistently change his looks, and we have to talk about the whole history of Primo Speranza, and we have to go on and talk about Buddy Israel. We have to talk about his whole story, and I'm like, where is this assassins? Where are the hitmen? Come on. And then like they have to tell all the hitman's history and story and whatever, like their last big case, and I'm just like, come on already. Like, let's get to the big event. Um, like a lot of build for the end product to just be uh, not that good in the end. It's a fun adventure, it's a fun ride, but like the end result is like not this big massive battle that you would kind of hope. You would kind of figure like everybody would be swarming in at once, just overwhelming the police force and the FBI and everybody and their brother. But it just doesn't like finish up that way. Uh, and so going to this film, I do enjoy it. I do like it. And I honestly wish there was a lot more. Besides a sequel. I know that there's a sequel, but and I kind of want to see the sequel because I don't think I remember it all that well. Um, but yeah, so I would have to go on and say that this is a good movie, but I have problems with it, of course. So with that said, let's just go into spoilers about this movie. Uh, so let's kind of tee it up. So what is technically this story about? So we have Jeremy Piven's character, who's Buddy Israel, and this character is to be put a hit upon him, and that all of a sudden is to have a number of people all interested in wanting this guy dead one way or another. But we have this guy Primo who is at opposite ends with Buddy Israel and puts the hit out on him, who wants his heart pulled out because there's a reason for that. So a lot of the hitmen are just like, I don't know about that heart thing, but I'll kill him. I'll make him dead. So because this guy is offering up $1 million to have this be a thing in their lives. So of course we have both Ryan Reynolds' character, who is Richard, and Ray Liotta's character, who is Donald, who is realizing what's going on here because they're FBI agents who are kind of wired up this house of Primo Sparazza, and they're realizing, oh my god, like we're gonna have to figure a way to prevent all these hitmen from trying to get to Buddy Israel, because Buddy Israel is to uh, want to come in because he is going to talk. He's going to sing like a canary. So, with that said, I think it's time for us to sing like a canary and spoil this movie, go into it. Let me know if if you're interested, if you've ever seen Smoking Aces before. Maybe you thoroughly enjoyed it. Maybe you thought it was better than what I would grade this as. Um, or let me know how you felt about the sequel of Smoking Aces too. Uh, really, like, when I'm also trying to like think of a number of movies that kind of feel like Smoking Aces, like I can't help just kind of falling into any number of like the Brad Pitt movie like Snatch, which don't remember Snatch all that well, but it kind of feels like we're getting into that kind of territory, or any kind of the other films that would go on and have these kind of like big elaborate casts and would have nothing to do with probably Hitman or whatever, but would just eventually seem to have like these big huge casts. So speaking of cast, let's cast our way into that double five time territory, because it's about that time to just say yet again that it is spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about the time you to spoil this movie. So, very beginning of the film, we of course have Richard and Donald, who are of course Ryan Reynolds and Ray Liotta, who are in this van 16 hours just kind of waiting for something to happen. And so it seems there, of course, is to be a guy named Cerna, who is talking to his people while Primo Speranza is in the other room. And Serna is going and calling guys and saying, like, hey, like, uh, Primo wants to put $1 million bounty on this guy, and he wants his heart pulled out, and like make it happen. And they're like, oh my god, like Buddy Israel, they want Buddy Israel to get killed off. And so now we go on and we have both Donald and Richard, who are, of course, meeting with Stanley Locke, and who's played by Andy Garcia. And Andy Garcia is kind of telling us who everyone is, like their whole life story. Because Stanley Locke is going on and talking to us about a guy named Freeman Heller, who was to be this detective who was to go on and go through a number of plastic surgeries to change his identity. And he wanted to change his identity so he can do some really good undercover work. And so they say in the beginning that supposedly Heller was killed, and more than likely Primo had some kind of connection to that. So Stanley is talking about Primo and Primo's life story, on how Primo lately has gone into also a number of plastic surgeries to save his life. And so we have it, of course, where Stanley is to mention that Primo was to have an affair with a woman, and that popped out Buddy Israel, and Buddy Ace Israel was to become this magician, and it seems like he's this lounge lizard. He's kind of bumping shoulders with Wayne Newton, and Buddy Israel is telling Wayne Newton, could you please just retire? I say this with all respect. Can you please just retire? I'm like, that's Wayne Newton. Don't disgrace Wayne Newton. Come on. So Buddy Israel is to be like, I'm assuming the David Copperfield of magicians, and everybody's just in awe of him. So, but we find out that also Buddy is to go and have people get killed. Using guys like Sir Ivy, who is, of course, Common, if you guys know the rapper turned actor known as Common. And also we have, where is the other guy? Hugo Croup, who is actually Joel Edgerton. If anybody was to see the Netflix movie Warrior, or Warriors, I always get that confused. Warrior, really good film, has Kurt Angle in it. But anyways, he plays Hugo in this movie. So it seems that Buddy Israel is very much wanting to roll on a lot of the people that he's either been connected with, or Buddy is to know a lot of things, and so he's going to roll on everybody. So we have a guy named Morris Mecklin, who is to be Israel's lawyer, kind of working on the things to roll on all of his people. And Morris is played by Curtis Armstrong, who a lot of people probably know from Revenge of the Nerds as Booger. It's kind of sad. It's kind of sad that most of the times, like, people will probably know him from that, or him being in the later seasons of Supernatural, but it is what it is. So Morris, this lawyer, is trying to make a deal with the FBI, and so they're going really thoroughly in depth trying to figure out ways to go on and get this deal struck here. So now, of course, we have Jack Dupree, who is played by Ben Affleck. And Ben Affleck goes on here as Jack, who is talking to Pistol Pete Deeks, who's actually Peter Berg. And they're going on and they're talking about who is to possibly be the local talent that is going to go on and take down Israel here, as well as Georgia Sykes and Sheris Waters, who is actually Alicia Keys, and Taherji Henson? Tahaji? I'm going to butcher that name. I remember seeing her on Empire. Henson. So, Georgia and Charisse are also, like, on their end, they're getting this woman that is kind of telling them, like, who all the other, like, hitmen are also. So there's kind of like a mix of all these people kind of telling you who all is going to be part of this assassin rung of things. So, and we have Ben Affleck's character who's a bail bondsman, but since he is kind of realizing that this contract is a very substantial contract, he's going to go on and try and be a part of this, as well as us eventually knowing about a guy named Acosta, who I guess is this guy known for torture. And this guy used to rip up every single thing of his fingertips, so no one would find out who exactly he is. And he like ripped out his fingers to the bone, and I'm like, wow, that's gross. We have the Tremor brothers, the three Tremor brothers. I guess their last big case was them going on through this one like club, and hilariously enough, all three of the guys ended up getting injured one way or the other, and they killed every single person in this environment. And so I think Chris Pine's character Darwin was to go on and get like shot in the neck, and Jeeves, who is kind of like the bigger of the three, of course, the Mohawk looking brother, he ended up getting blinded and by I think like a misfire upon his weapon, and Lester ended up getting shot in the leg. So Lester is like jumping on the back of Jeeves, and Lester is telling Jeeves where to go. So, and Jeeves is kind of hauling Darwin out, like dragging him out of this place. And so we just see like the absolute carnage and the wildness of all three of these guys who are in the yellow. They're at the bottom of the screen there. And so, like, you can kind of tell how, like, weird these characters at some point get. So, we also have a guy named Soot. Soot. So, Soot. This guy is to be an assassin that you'll never know is coming. This guy goes on and is to disguise himself as these rando-like things that if this guy wants you dead, you won't know. Like this guy, you won't see him, because we have a moment where I guess Soot needed to go on and assassinate somebody in the street, and Soot is to actually be a completely different looking guy, dreadlocks, in this wheelchair, and all of a sudden he comes flying out of the wheelchair, shooting these guys up. And then he takes off his mask to reveal it's a completely different person as he's jumping on this vehicle, getting the heck out of there. So, I think for the most point, we covered most of the assassins as good as we can. So now we're gonna go on. Now we got that all ash out of the way. So we have it where Buddy Israel is to kind of wake up from his night of partying, and we just see a slew of ladies of the night who are either clothed or not, and all just strolled out through all this penthouse. And so we have it where I think a guy named Beanie is to kind of get all these women out and tell them to get the heck out of there, as it seems like all the girls are beating the crap out of one another as they're leaving. We, of course, have one moment where Israel is talking to Coop, or Croup, Hugo Croup, and he's mentioning, like, hey, like, is there a stain upon my jacket? And the guy's like, yeah. It's like, well, like, what do you think that stain is? And it's obviously some man juice stain. And so Israel's like, that's been sitting on that jacket for a number of hours now. And what do you think that we should probably do with this jacket? And like Israel's like, well, incinerate it, because like there's no way to get that stain out now. So people are starting to get like really like for this kind of like for these characters to just kind of be getting up and kind of get their day together. We can kind of tell who Israel really is. So at one point, we eventually have, of course, Sir Ivy, who's Common. We find out that Common is to realize that Israel is going to roll on him. And so Sir Ivy gets really upset. And so at one point, the security comes in to haul off Common. And we have Alicia Keys, who is just kind of making her way up this elevator as Georgia, and she's talking to Charisse the whole time, and Charisse has this big, massive gun to kind of sniper anybody from the opposite part of this building, and so, and there's a lot of stuff just kind of going on all at the same time, so this is great. So both Richard and Donald, who are Ryan Reynolds and Ray Liotta, are making their way into this hotel, and Acosta, who is to be that who's to be the kind of torture expert, the guy who ripped off all his fingers, he was to take out this head of security guy who is watching all of these cameras, and is to go on and disguise himself as this guy, Bill, the security super. So we have Jack Dupree, Pistol Pete, and Hollins, Ben Affleck, the Ben Affleck group. We have them go and meet with Jason Bateman's character, and because they want an exchange of his name is Rupert Rip Reed, who's Jason Bateman. So they want a costume that is to make their way into this casino, and so they're kind of like maroon costumes. And so Ben Affleck's character goes with this group to kind of show the costumes off, and they're on this hood. And so the Tremor brothers go on and kill all these guys off, and are to take these security costumes and take them. Oh wow, Chris Pine is going and sitting on top of Ben Affleck's character and is like moving his lips like this, where it's like, "Hey man, we were wanted," and this is what Ben Affleck is supposedly saying. "Hey man, we were wanted by the cops. It's good that you took us out, and like Kevin's really nice. Like maybe you should come along at some point." And Chris Pine is just like, "Really?" Like, yeah, maybe we will. As we have this kind of force, like his eyes are being opened and like his lips are like making a smile goofingly. So we have the other two Tremor brothers that are just messing around. They're like wrestling around, and Pine is telling them like, "Hey, like stop effing around, get the costumes and get out of here." So, and they're also to dump the bodies in the water. Come to find out, one of the guys who we assumed is dead, who is actually Hollis, is to not be dead. He's to make his way. That's why there's so much to talk about in this movie. Hollis is to make his way to some rando house that conveniently has a nurse there that has this kid that has his like patch over his eye, and he has this like karate gear on, and he's consistently telling this guy, "Hey, don't mess with me. Like you're looking at me. Do you want some?" And he's like pa 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 pa, and Hollis is just like he's looking at this kid, and he's just like, "Oh my god, like this kid is going to hurt me. And I've already been hurting enough." And also, I think honestly, while this kid was consistently punching in front of this guy's face, I'm seriously thinking that this kid had a whiffy stiffy while doing this. What a weird kid. A funny kid, and like give him all the props in the world for looking really cool, while being very intimidated in front of this guy. So, what ends up happening with this guy to kind of finish up this story? Hollis goes on and is to get clothes from this woman and is to get a gun from this woman. And by the end of this, Chris Pine's character is the only one that is really left out of the Tremor brothers because they end up getting murderously killed. And Hollis is talking with Chris Pine's character, and all he cares about is getting even with Chris Pine's character and shoots him up and then takes his ride. So, like, that's how that kind of ends that story. Actually, for me, I was kind of rooting for the Tremor brothers just because they're the goofiest looking characters in this movie. No offense to anybody else that had their favorites. Maybe you liked Georgia. Maybe you liked Ben Affleck's character. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe you liked Ryan Reynolds. Maybe you're rooting for the good guy. I don't know. So, anyways, let's do everything else. So, Buddy Israel is going on and consistently doing coke, and everything is going sideways. Things are going wrong because, of course, the one detective who is to be played by Andy Garcia, who eventually is to realize, good God, why isn't this easier? Stanley Luck, there we go, is to kind of figure something out. So Stanley Luck is to realize that that Primo is actually Heller. That Primo is to have gone on and had numerous plastic surgeries to be Primo, and after they're going on and promising Israel all of this stuff, they quickly pull out because they realize that that Primo here is going to give up so much more stuff than Israel is, and so really they're kind of fine if Israel dies here because they just want to keep Primo alive. Because if they can go on and get Primo to easily tell them information, which they think is going to easily happen, then like, man, this guy has like 60 years of really good like information, and of course he's going to give it to us because previously he was this like detective that was going to work with us. So like we're definitely going to go on and want to keep this guy alive. So now we go on, and so we of course have Croup, who is to go on and meet with Suit here. And so we have Suit, who is the disguising assassin-like man, and he, of course, is to arrive at this place, and Croup is to make his way into Suit's area of which that he is to be at. So Suits shoots this guy and then goes on and makes a mask that looks just like Croup. Suits goes on into this penthouse dressed and looking like, of course, Croup. And Croup all of a sudden is getting set up to get ready to take down Israel. Like he's getting all of his his heart gear together to kind of pull this guy's heart out. He's getting everything set up. So, Kasut is to already shoot this guy named Beanie, who is to be just kind of crazily cleaning up this penthouse. And so Common's character, who's Sir Ivy, they end up thinking that Ivy was the one who had killed Beanie. And so Ivy goes on and gets arrested, but then come to find out, like, they can't get him, like, down far enough to get him out of here and get him arrested, because we have the Tremor Brothers who goes through, like, this guy's floor and starts killing all these guys off. And all of a sudden, Georgia, because we have a lot of the elevators that accidentally all get stuck, and so everybody's just kind of pushing their doors open manually to just get the heck out of there. So Georgia is to land on the same floor as the Tremor Brothers and Ivy, and Georgia is to get shot twice. And so we have Ryan Reynolds' character going on and trying to figure out where these shots are coming from, because Charisse is going and putting a plethora of bullet holes into FBI guys, and Richard, who is Ryan Reynolds, is desperately trying to shoot out the window crazily, not knowing where these shots are coming from. And so these FBI guys are getting blasted because we have Charisse that thinks that Georgia was to be killed in the line of fire of things, because Charisse is to see a girl lying down on the ground that looks like Georgia, and so she starts firing randomly. But Georgia is still in this elevator because Georgia can't communicate with Charisse, and so she just randomly continues to just fire off everywhere. So, confusing enough? I think so. So, the Tremor Brothers, for the most part, end up getting brutally killed. And so Chris Pine's character decides to run back to this elevator where he changes his disguise and is disguising himself as some FBI guy and runs out of the place crying, supposedly. So at this point, we have it where Israel is to be drugged out of his gourd, and to the point of him having cardiac arrest. So they're taking Israel out of here, and everybody at this point who is trying to go after this guy has kind of failed. Suits was trying to go after this guy, and Suit ended up having to make an escape, and then he ended up taking his mask off and taking his costume off and was playing off that he was just some other guy. And while everyone was distracted, Suits got out of there and ended up being some security guy with a security costume on, and he ended up leaving the area. So many people miserably failed at this, to the point of we had Donald, who's Ray Liotta's character, who is with Acosta, the finger guy, the fingertip guy. And so Acosta, who is playing off as this this head security guard, this security super, Donald is talking to him, and he sees that this guy's fingertips are to be mangled. And so Donald realizes that this is Acosta, and so they end up in a firefight. They end up both shooting one another, because I think both of them are starting to realize what's really going on. And so we have Donald that is asking certain kind of questions, kind of asking this guy, like, well, can't maintenance help with this elevator? And so it's backing and forthing. And so they both kind of shoot themselves. They both kill one another off. And we have, of course, Georgia, who realizes the carnage. And so shortly thereafter, that's when she starts getting shot up and everything like that. So Ivy is to come back to really just take Georgia, and he's like carrying her all throughout this whole entire casino to get her medical help. Charisse is to spot the two making their way out of there, because coincidentally Charisse immediately knows where Georgia is psychically without her really even realizing it. So Charisse is just waiting to basically get killed here, because there's a number of police officers. They're making their way to Charisse to kill her off. So sad. Anyways, so nobody really gets to Israel here. What happens is we have Ryan Reynolds bringing Israel to this hospital right next to Primo. And so Locke is to tell Richard what had really happened, that they're wanting to save Primo because he'll give up more information than Israel will. And so they're thinking about doing the heart transplant on Primo to save his life. And Richard is kind of really upset about all this because he wasn't informed. And on top of that, like, his partner has to die for nothing. And so now Richard, who is really ticked off about this, and at this point he's just like, you know what, like, nobody's going to be able to say a thing now. Because Richard decides to pull the plug on both Israel and on both Primo, killing them both off simultaneously, as Locke is desperately trying to get into this room, bashing through this glass, trying to get to Richard as both these guys are to get killed. Richard goes on and is to drop his badge, his gun, his bullets, and just kind of just sit there and just kind of wait things out. And that's how technically the movie is to rattle off an end. So, with that said, There's probably a billion things to have also covered here because there is too much going on in this film. But I tried to do my best. This movie's all over the place. Um, but it's a good all over the place. Like, I think uh, there's a lot of good in this film, but there's also a lot of times where you kind of set up a lot of these characters just to quickly kill them off. Um, which kind of don't like that. Kind of just uh, feels like the Suicide Squad, where we go and like we have to tell you, hey, like here's all the powers of the bad guys, and here's their whole history. But then we turn around and have them go into a mission that they cannot win. Uh, and I was kind of like, really? Like spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen The Suicide Squad. Um, but that's how that movie kind of plays out. So, with that said, I'm going to get the heck out of here to go on and probably be done for the day. More than likely, I would just be. I might thinking about maybe doing something else, but I'm not quite sure. And plus, also like it'll probably take me a while to find anything to freaking watch because that's what usually happens. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I'll just go on and just put this out today. But I'm still feeling really quite awake, so I don't know. We'll figure something out, or just put this out and be fine with it. So with that said, goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.